Welcome back to another episode of RecTalk. We are filming live still from the IHR Live Lounge in London. It's been a busy old day so far, and nothing brightens up my day more than spending time with Cordelia. So thank you once again for joining me. I appreciate you, you know that. I wanted to dedicate this episode to you and letting people know about your journey and your background, and sort of almost just helping people kind of understand what your why is, right? Why do you do what you do? Because I think there's a lot of eye rolling that happens when people talk about DEI and, or EDI or whatever abbreviation version you want to use, right? There's a lot of eye rolling that happens and a lot of kind of tick boxing that happens, as we know. But I don't think people necessarily appreciate the journey it takes for people like yourself, a woman of color in a male-dominated industry, to be able to rise up. So I wanted to dedicate this episode to knowing more about you.
Thank you. So what do you want to know?
Let's start from the beginning. Where are you originally from?
Nigeria.
Nigeria.
So I was born in Nigeria and grew up in a very happy home.
Mm-hmm.
I moved to the UK in my 20s, and I always like to say I moved over for love. So I came over, my husband was here, and when I came over, I describe myself as a reluctant entrant into the UK because the weather was so cold. And everywhere I went to was quite grey.
Yeah.
And I think the day I arrived in the UK was a bin day.
Yeah.
So all the bins were out on the streets.
Yeah,
I said to him, I said, what is happening here? I thought this place was clean. But yeah, so it was quite, I would say, a very reluctant entry. And the first few years, I didn't really feel like it was a place I was going to stay.
Okay.
I always felt like it was just too hard, too lonely, too challenging. But
this is compared to back
in Nigeria.
back to life back in Nigeria, right?
Yes.
So what was that like then? So what was
difference?
So community based around that?
I think the difference there is you never feel alone. So I ran a business in Nigeria before I came here. So I actually ran a fashion business. And there were challenges. So you had challenges around infrastructure, the economy was all over the place, and also there were issues around security. But you were never far away from help. So you always felt there was someone around the corner who could help. It could be a family member, it could be someone from your school, but that wasn't the case when I came here. It was pretty lonely, apart from my husband and a few other friends I had.
And do you think that was because you didn't grow up here? Do you think that? So what I mean is, do you think other people, like your neighbours and stuff, do you think they also felt the same, or do you think that they felt like there was more of a community because they grew up around these people?
No, I think loneliness is an issue here. I think loneliness is an issue. I think we still have issues around loneliness, especially for elderly people till today. But after the pandemic, we've had a lot of conversations around mental health issues for our young people. And I think if you're not actively seeking to build your own tribe or your own community, it can be pretty lonely in the UK. If you look at young people now on social media, where sometimes you feel as if that's your community, it's very different from face to face. And the way I describe it is, if something happens that means that you have young children, they need to go stay with someone, you don't have someone you can call on.
There isn't that someone.
There isn't that someone, or you're out of work for a period of time and you don't feel like you can knock on someone's door and say, I need help. That is what I mean by loneliness. It's very much an individualistic
do you think that's driven by culture, by kind of attitude, or what is that down to?
If you look at societies across the world, we're still very much an individualistic society. It's very much down to individual achievements, very much down to your own little, I would say, nuclear family if you had one. And the example I always use is when I was growing up in Nigeria, it was the norm to have someone just come to your house without giving you any warning. Okay? And it was also the norm, sometimes very irritating at times, for you to be told someone is coming over just like that
Yeah.
and they're going to sleep over
Yeah.
and they need to be fed. Okay. Now it can be very, very annoying, but the upside to this is that those are the community members that will help you in times of
Yeah,
trouble.
of course, yeah.
And it's not all of them.
It's a social
definitely.
investment,
It's a
isn't
very
it?
social. It's very much a social event,
Yeah.
and it's very much a community focused, a community based kind of society.
That's interesting. Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely echo that. That's what our families were like, right? We would, yeah, anytime neighbours would come over
Come over,
or members of extended family would just come over,
come over. Yes.
you know.
Not convenient sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Or family and friends would come over. But
Come
if
over.
if we're doing dinner, a family friend would come over and, oh, what are you having? Yeah, go on then, plate me up.
Yeah.
Go on, I'll eat as
Yeah,
well.
definitely.
And so, you'd always make that little bit extra and stuff. Yeah,
Extra.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, whereas, no, you're right, because actually, yeah, my wife, like, found that part really
Really
hard to
hard.
adjust to
Yes.
in her mind. So I don't understand why you
Yeah.
let your friends come around the house and
Without notice.
and just go through the fridge. I'm like, why? Let them do it. Like,
That's normal.
Yeah.
That's normal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're here. You're in your 20s. You're unsure as to whether this will be where you stay.
Yes.
So how does that pivot or change over time for you?
I think over time I started to build my own community. So at that time there was a lot of uncertainty, instability in Nigeria. So a lot of people came over straight over from university, graduates. I had almost like a cohort of people who left Nigeria at that time, and we kept in touch. So we met up regularly. We started to build almost like our own community here.
Yeah, your little tribe, yeah.
A little tribe. And then with work, what I also did with everywhere I worked was intentionally, I sought out people I felt I could learn from. Not people who looked like me, people I felt I could learn from. So I started to build my own network of friends. And I would say role models, people I felt would give me some insight into what does it take to actually mature and grow in this society, make your own mark, do things differently in a way where it's down to what is acceptable here.
Yeah. And was that a conscious decision then?
It was a conscious decision.
Wow, okay.
I think what I've always done whenever I've gone into a new environment, even when I was young, is to seek out people who really I see excelling in that environment and to understand what is enabling them cut through, because change is always challenging. And one of the things we need to remember is people resist change because they fear the loss of control. But some people drive change in a meaningful way. So I always find a way to learn from those people. And sometimes you might make a decision, this environment is not for me, because it's requiring me to do things I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And that's a learning on its own. Because you realize that maybe I need to go somewhere else, I need to do something else, but I always seek that learning from other people, and it's helpful. And I have to say, it doesn't have to be people that look like you all the time.
No.
There's a lot of learning in a new environment for people
I was
who
going
don't
to say,
look and think like you.
you were very specific about that. Why was that something you think is key to point out?
Because I think we can get very sucked into our own echo chambers, where we hear what we want to hear, we see what we want to see, and I like to be challenged. So I even the work I've been doing for years, I can tell you I've had education points all through. A few years ago, we had a lot of noise in the media around trans inclusion.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot of stuff around what it means to be trans in this society from someone who was transitioning also at that time.
Okay.
And it was almost like an education and a relationship that was based on friendship, respect, and learning both ways. So we were able to ask questions.
There's no stupid question when there's respect,
questions,
right?
No
and
stupid questions.
It's not. Yeah. I totally agree.
So
with that,
a lot, don't get me wrong. Education is so important when it comes to, I would say, formal education, and I'm a big believer in formal education. So I'm constantly upskilling myself. But I can tell you the learning that comes from having conversations with people, you can't put any price on it at all.
So, how long before you decided that you want to champion diversity and equality and inclusion?
It wasn't
As
a
in publicly
yeah,
championing
it
it.
wasn't a conscious decision, Nitin. I'll be honest with you. One thing that always was on my mind when I came to this country was the murder of Stephen Lawrence.
Yes, right,
So
yeah.
I came in just after he was murdered, and it was a shock to me that that could still happen in today's society. And in my own small way, in my community, amongst the people I knew, I always talked about the importance of understanding why inclusion is important, but also educating other people about why racism has no place in society. And it's not educating by way of a board or a
No.
PowerPoint, it's about conversations
And
uh,
demonstration,
and
right?
demonstration.
Yeah.
And there's almost like a responsibility that comes with being someone who works in this space where you can't stay away from that conversation. So when you ask the question about when I made a choice to be more visible, more vocal, I would say it was an evolution from those conversations I was having with leaders who came to me to say, I want to just pick your brains on XYZ, or I'm doing a piece of work on XYZ. What do you think?
So it's almost like because of the way you consciously and subconsciously carried yourself and always sought to expand your own mind, people noticed that and saw that as okay, Cordelia is the person to ask if I'm unsure about this particular thing, and it leans into something that she knows about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And,
you kind of, yeah.
and when people talk about safe space, I intentionally create that safe space. So if I'm connecting with people, I don't connect with people or connect with leaders and decision makers through the lens of we're talking about equity and inclusion. We all have something in common. We might have things in common by way of family
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
food or our
Yeah.
parents. Everyone was born from someone, isn't
That's
it?
it, that's
So,
it.
so we have something in common. So the conversation should start from what we have in common instead of what divides us, because that is very alienating.
Yeah, yeah. But we as humans have this tendency to categorize everything though, right?
Absolutely, it's easier. Because if you think about the way the mind works, we have so much stimuli in one day. It's easier to just put things in
Into little
compartments,
boxes and
back
compartments.
boxes, let our biases kick in, make decisions based on what's happened before, lessons learned, issues when we've been betrayed, blah, blah, blah. But as leaders, as senior people, there's a responsibility to say, okay, I'm taking a step back, I'm open to learning, and that's where the difference is between people who are open to learning and people who've shut down and said, that is it, that is what I know, and I'm not changing.
Yeah,
And some of the conversations might be tricky, and some of the conversations might be actually challenging to your own beliefs, but it's endless and it's continuous, and it has to be consistent.
no, I like that. Can I ask a personal question?
Yes,
As a as a Nigerian,
yes.
how conflicted are you, or were you, if at all, about championing things like the trans community? Because culturally speaking, it's a
Absolutely.
very different world to
Yes.
kind of what you're brought up with, right?
Yes.
And that must come up
Of
sometimes.
course. So I can tell you, let me tell you a story. So when I came into the UK, I did a couple of odd jobs here and there. So I was working in retail. And like you said, when you come into a society like this, and you see a lot of conversations around LGBTQ rights and all that, you're like taken aback. Because in Nigeria now, it's still illegal.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
still illegal. So I remember working in retail, and at that time I was working in the West End. And we used to go into Soho, which is one of my favorite places now. And I was like, whoa, what is going on here? When I was pregnant, I had a manager who was gay, proudly gay. And before I was pregnant, that pregnancy, I had a series of miscarriages. So I was told to take it easy when I was working. Now, this manager knew about my miscarriages, and he always made sure that I wasn't made to do anything that could possibly harm me. It was extra nice. And because it was a very difficult pregnancy, I remember even when I went for lunch, sometimes I would struggle because I would be so tired. And he would say, take another 10 minutes. He never ever forced me to go back to work. And in my thinking, back to the learning and constantly challenging myself,
Yeah.
I started challenging my thinking around what it means to be gay, LGBTQ. And I said to myself, this manager, I'm not going to call his name now, is gay, openly gay, proudly gay. And it's actually nicer to me than even the women who know what it means to be pregnant or
Yeah.
miscarried.
Yeah.
And that, honestly, that was my seminal moment where I thought to myself, it would be stupid of me to judge someone because they are gay, because this human being has just treated me like a human
Like a
being
human being himself. Yeah.
himself.
Yeah.
So those kind of incidents actually, I always challenge my thinking, challenge my preconceptions, my biases. And that's what I ask people to do. If you interact with other people, you get to understand they're just like you. We have a lot more in common than what divides us.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I know that was a personal question and stuff. So, how far do you think we are as a society from finally being able to move past, categorization of people, just treating people as people?
This is going to be a more complicated answer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when I came into this space, I didn't come into this space through the corporate space. Okay. I actually was working as a social researcher, and much of the work I did was really motivated by exposure to policy work, social policy work. So when I came into this space, it was really around community engagement and some of the issues we're seeing in the early 2000s around some communities that were seen as not engaging with government, not engaging. Okay, I'm not going to go into the details. Okay, they were there, but they were not being engaged properly. Let me just put it like that. So we've seen cycles where society seems to have a scapegoat.
Yeah.
They seem to want to have a bogey person or a bogey man that we feel is that evil or is that other.
And is the root cause of
the
the
root
issues.
cause of the issue.
Yeah. It's the boat people right now.
The boat people right now. And a few years ago, it was about immigrants, it was about Muslims. Before that, we're talking about, people coming from Europe.
Yeah, it was the Polish.
Exactly. There's always been that group.
Yeah, before that, Kosovans and the Kurds,
the
and the Albanians. Yeah. It's always someone else.
Go back to when it was the Jewish after the Second World War. It's always been a group that's been othered. And to your question, we need to understand why people are being othered.
Okay.
And who's benefiting from people being othered. So when you say, how close are we? I think I would like to flip the question. And I would like to ask the question, how close are we to people understanding how they're being manipulated?
Who the culprits of this are,
How they're being manipulated to other others.
No, I agree. Yeah,
because if you think about the history of how people have been othered, how there's always a scapegoat, how there's always a bogeyman, some people are benefiting from this happening.
I said this the other day, that we're focused on the wrong 1%.
Wrong 1%.
We're looking at the boat people, and we should be looking at the people on the other side of the train completely and going, hold on a minute.
Absolutely.
Why are policies and such that encourage people to do this? Why are you not stopping it at there? Who's profiteering from this? Who's benefiting from this? What?
And there are two sides to every story.
Right.
There are two sides to every story.
Yeah.
So I always say, we talk about we have too many immigrants here. And I always find that word very interesting because I grew up in Nigeria and I was lucky enough, my parents sent me to a private school that had people from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
Which is very, very normal in Nigeria. And I remember most of the children came from families where their parents came to work in the multinational companies or they were working in embassies, but they were called expatriates.
Right, yeah.
Okay, they were called expatriates. But somehow, when we come to the country, we're called immigrants. So there is something about the language and how divisive it is.
Language, absolutely, is it's weaponized.
It's weaponized. So even the way we classify individuals as a Western society with low birth rate, the reality is we are going to always need some level
Yes.
of legal immigration.
Yeah.
That's the reality. Europe is going to always need some
Yes.
level of legal
The
immigration.
world requires
It requires
an
it.
immigration system
It
because
requires
that's
it.
just, yeah.
That's the way it is.
Humans are nomadic.
We're
We all
nomadic.
long for something
We're
different. We all
nomadic.
long for change. Those in the cold climates want to live in the warm climates.
Yes.
The ones in the warm climate can't wait to move somewhere cold.
Absolutely.
Not all of them, but you know.
Yeah. Some people like cold.
Yeah. Listen, I don't know. Those people are called psychopaths, but
Yes.
yeah.
So the reality is we're always going to be on the move.
Absolutely. No, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I thought this the other day. Me and my wife were talking about this whole the big march.
Yes.
Yeah. And I sort of said, do you know what would be a great counter reaction to that?
Yeah.
Was if all people of colour and of immigrant descent striked for a day.
Yeah.
We ain't going.
No work.
I ain't going. I'm not driving your bus. I'm not driving your Uber. I'm not delivering your takeaways.
Yeah.
I'm not nursing your elderly. I'm not cleaning up after your mess. I'm not being your doctor. I'm not being your lawyer. I'm not being your dentist today. You know, I'm not going to work.
Yeah.
And let's see how that impacts the country's economy.
Yes.
You know, that level of halt
Yes.
would tank the stock market for a day.
Yeah.
You know, let's see how that plays out. You know,
If I'm gonna be devil's advocate, I would say, like I always say, there are two truths every time. It is perfectly normal and understandable for any person to feel like uncontrolled immigration is an issue.
100%. Yeah.
Perfectly. However, we should not villainize people who are here working, contributing, paying taxes.
This is where the problem becomes, right? You start
Yes.
this is what point around the weaponization of language and how important that is, because you start the conversation around illegal boat migrants, and then all of a sudden it's a conversation about anybody who doesn't belong here anymore. That they're two different things,
it's
right?
Two different things.
But that conversation becomes blended.
Yes, it gets conflated, and I think it's intentional.
Yeah.
Because it's a distraction.
Yeah.
It's a distraction. So. A lot of things are not working. We want things to work better. We want society to run better. We want our children to have a better future. That should be the focus. So there's a lot of noise, I feel, that's distracting us from the work that needs to happen.
You have more in common with your migrant neighbour than you do with some of the higher end people in the country, right? You both just want to pay your bills on time.
We want to pay our bills on time. We want our children to have a better future. We want
maybe
to
go on a holiday once a year. You know what I mean? Like you all just want the same thing.
We want the same thing. We want the same thing.
Yeah, you're two peas in the same pod.
We want the same thing. Yeah. So I think that the whole idea about what we're dealing with now is something that has become very binary. It's either you're for one camp or you're for the other camp, and it can be a challenge. So I see leaders shying away from having conversations because it's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
And I totally get it.
Because people feel like they have to pick a side. Nobody can have an objective, centered opinion. And they say, hey, some of these things I agree with, some of the things I disagree with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's so toxic.
Yeah.
It's so toxic at the moment.
It's tough. It's tough.
It's tough, yeah.
I love the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Do you ever get to a point, though, and think, what's the what am I doing it for?
What's the point?
Yeah, look, the last time we sat down and had this conversation was in March, and the world was a very different place just 6 months ago.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes. I think what you need to remember is that sometimes our feed is not representative of the whole world. So our news feed.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can tell you in the work I do daily, I still speak to leaders who want to make their organizations better. I still speak to leaders who want to attract the best talent. I still speak to leaders who look around and say, I want to reflect the communities I serve. But those leaders are not comfortable being in public, having a debate about what's happening, because they will be actually vilified by ostracized or cancelled by one party or the other. But I can tell you on a daily basis, even for today, I'm working with leaders who are saying that we need to do things better.
And that's that's the truth, right? Yeah,
That's the
absolutely right.
reality.
Yeah,
That's the reality.
your feeds are engineered in such a way to keep you on the platform and in which you're engaging with, and
And good news
they're
doesn't
only
sell.
gonna no exactly they're
Good
only
news
gonna
doesn't
tell you
sell.
things.
Yeah.
You don't need to be accurate. You don't need to be true. You just need to be first.
You just have to be first. You have to be the noisiest. You have to be the most, I would say, the most challenging when it comes to your language. You have to trigger people. You have to put things out there that's going to be controversial. That's the way news is at the moment. But a lot of people leave home every day to go do their best at work.
Yeah.
They come back. They want to do their best in their homes. They want their children or their siblings or whoever to go out and have a fantastic day in their schools, whatever. People still want the best in their lives, and they want their best for their people.
And you're absolutely right. I noticed that certainly in recent months with myself as well, that actually people also just want community.
They want community.
And if you start reaching out in that manner,
Yes,
to build that community,
you have to.
people are receptive to that.
They are very receptive. Every time I have a conversation with people and I tell them there's an event happening or there's something happening that's all about maybe building a coalition, people get excited. People are seeking good news. People are seeking connections. People are seeking almost like clarity around what can they do.
It's almost such a golden sort of business opportunity for people out there right now, right?
It is. So I can tell you, like, even some of the things I'm involved in is about community building around change.
Yeah.
How can we drive change in a meaningful way? So one of the organizations I'm supporting is launching over the next 4 years some leadership programs that are going to support charity leaders who come from the global majority. I'm working with an organization who's looking at their strategy and making sure that they retain the best. Work is ongoing. Work is ongoing. And I think the phrase that people use now is about quiet doing. Because they're trying to avoid the noise. They're trying to avoid all the, almost I would say, the backlash that will come to them when they're seen to be, I would say, too pro a certain group, and maybe having some of the work that's happening against.
It almost undoes all the hard work, doesn't it?
It does all the hard work. And it's a distraction. It's a distraction, really. Yeah.
I've got Sean showing, what is that? I was just about to say, as soon as I wrap this up, I want to go for lunch. I'm so hungry. Yeah, lovely. Yeah, great. Cordelia, this is always a pleasure. I love any chance I get. In fact, when the organisers were going through a list of like, here's who we've got, I was like, oh, Cordelia, definitely. I want to catch up with her.
And I came to see you out. You look good.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm trying. Thank you for sharing a lot of that.
Thank you.
Because, again, people who know you probably see glimpses of you and parts of what you do, but not necessarily the journey and the backstory, right?
And there's more next time.
Please, 100%. Look forward to it.
All right,
Thank you very much. Guys, that's all from us. We'll see you again on the next episode.